Hey guys, it's Brett. Thanks for dropping by my channel. So first of all, I have to say, sorry about the weird background today. I'm not at home. So what you're looking at behind me on this side, um, are cushions from outside. Uh, so anyway, so that's why this background looks so weird. I'm here today to talk about my 10 final books of 2023, my particular favorites of 2023 in a year of super memorable books. So let's get right into it. All right, so I was going to talk about, which I usually do, what I'm reading now, but I'm going to save that for the beginning of next week when I will do my wrap up of December, and then I will talk about all this kind of things so we can get right down to it. So let's begin first with Countries of Origin by Javier Fuentes. I should say I'm not going to spend a long time on all these books because I've talked about them all before, but this Javier Fuentes debut novel, really beautiful, it's kind of a reverse immigration story about an illegal immigrant, a young man from Madrid who has gone as a child to live with his uncle in New York City. He becomes a chef, a very accomplished chef, but can't really move up because of his immigration status. But through a series of circumstances, ends up getting deported. On his way back to Madrid, he's on the flight with another young man from Madrid, who was in the city studying at NYU, and a relationship between them developed. The guy who is going to NYU is from a very wealthy family in Madrid. So a lot of the story is about class. It's just beautiful. It's gorgeously written. One of the things I kept saying when I was reading this was sensual. It completely comes to mind. Fuentes does an incredible job of creating a terrific sense of time and place. Just a great debut. I can't wait to see what he comes up with next. Next, one of my many big books. Big books was the theme for me for 2023. The Covenant of Water by Abraham Verghese. Absolutely loved this. Yes, it was huge. I did a great buddy read of this. And for those of you who haven't read it, I would encourage you to read it that way. We read it over a month, which was very manageable, around 30 to 40 pages a day. Had a great discussion. It's a huge story that begins with a young child bride and the descendants of that family who are cursed with drowning. So I don't want to tell you too much. I would just say strap in, go for the ride. It's so beautiful. Also, Verghese narrates the audio, and it's a great treat. All right, next up, Bret Easton Ellis's The Shards. First of all, can we just talk about how amazing this cover is? I had never read any Bret Easton Ellis before, but part of my curiosity was piqued about this because it is set at the Buckley School in Los Angeles, which is the school that my kids go to. So I kind of I was really curious. Very metafiction. It's the school that Bret went to. It's kind of told like his point of view, his group of very kind of overprivileged friends, and a newcomer who comes into their group who may or may not be a serial killer. It's very cat and mouse. It has this incredible tension that builds throughout the novel. It's very sexual. It's very violent. So I say those things as, the old trigger warnings for those who may want that. It is going to give you all the trigger warnings, but I found it a compelling read that I read right in the beginning of the year, and I'm still thinking about it at the end of the year. So that to me is, the sign of what is a memorable and great book. So, all right, number 7. Is that right? 4, 12, 11, 10, 9. Number 6. I don't know. I'm not going to try to count backwards. I can barely count forwards. Wellness by Nathan Hill. I was such a huge fan of the Knicks. Couldn't wait when I heard he had a new book coming out. There is no sophomore slump for Nathan Hill. This is a fantastic book about a marriage from when these two people meet through the kind of bumps and malaise that settles in, and kids and parents. Uh, there are so many wonderful wormholes that Nathan Hill goes down. There is such a memorable section about social media in particular that I think is so brilliant. It's worth the entire price of the book. Um, I just think he is so smart and so insightful. And this was just a phenomenal read. I loved it. Another big book, The Bee Sting by Paul Murray. I immediately, upon finishing this, went out and bought Skippy Dies, his first book, because I'd never read that. This is the book for all the Franzen lovers out there. It is very Jonathan Franzen-esque, but Irish. Paul Murray is a master with characterization in this book. He creates this family. Each chapter is devoted to one of them, the mother and father and two kids. But what he does so brilliantly is alter the text and the telling of each story slightly to accommodate each character. It's brilliant and so subtle. It's hilarious. It's horrifying at times. There was points of this that I was so tense because of what potentially could happen. It's again like Wellness, so insightful. And although I didn't completely love the ending, I felt it became for me a little convenient. I still think overall it is such a worthy and fantastic piece of literature. And I don't know, I was just in from the beginning and loved it. Another book I'm going to say another book I loved. Why would I be sharing a book that I didn't like in this section? I mean, really? We're at that point of the year? I mean, come on. But Northwoods by Daniel Mason. Again, love this cover so much. This story about a house and the land that it's sitting on over the course of hundreds of years and the people that come through it and inhabit it. It was so ingenious. It is very, if you're a fan of David Mitchell, I think you would feel right at home here. It's very David Mitchell-esque, kind of the scope of it, the different types of stories that he's telling. You know, there are all the different characters. I mean, even the style and the way the book is written, from letters, there's at least one ghost story in here. Characters that come in the beginning of the book reappear later. It's so well crafted, so incredibly charming. I absolutely loved it, marveled at him, and can't wait to read other stuff by him, because this is the first book I've ever read by Daniel Mason, and my sister has talked about him a lot and says he's incredible. So, but truly just a wonderful book. Okay, so I'm going to do these as a double banger because they both to me were not equal in any way, but they had comparisons, and that Tom Lake and Hello Beautiful by Ann Patchett and Ann Napolitano. Both of them are kind of based on classic literature stories. Tom Lake, of course, kind of focuses on our town. Hello Beautiful is a kind of update of Little Women. Both deal with sisters and families and mothers. Both of them were beautiful books. This much more kind of a memory piece. Both of them are fantastic audiobooks. This one narrated by actress Maura Tierney. This, of course, narrated, and I've talked about, by Meryl Streep. I thought both of them were moving, compelling, left me with such a warm feeling inside. Fantastic crowd pleasing books. Love both. Speaking of crowd pleasing and heartwarming, The Heaven and Earth Grocery Store by James McBride. What a fantastic story. I am a huge fan of James McBride. This book about a group of residents who are Black and Jewish in a small Pennsylvania town who all come together to help this young deaf boy escape from an institution is phenomenal. Again, something that's resonated through all these books to me is character, and James McBride is a master of character. There are a lot of them in this book, but I have to tell you, it all of them are necessary. All of them make sense, and you just have to trust and go with it. They all have a part to play. And what it really shows you is the power of a community. And despite our differences, how people can come together to really enact good in this world. It's what I want to believe. I want to believe this is who people really are. I want to believe that in the face of crisis or a certain moral dilemma, people actually will do the right thing. And that's what this book talks about. So this is the book that I will probably, despite it not being my number one book of the year, this would probably be one of the books that I would most recommend to give to other people, because I just feel its message is so important now. Which brings me to my next book and my penultimate book of the year, talking about messaging, which is The Deluge by Stephen Markley. Again, huge, and I know it. I guess what I would say my message for 2023 is, and going into 24, don't be afraid of the big books. Just take more time, break them into small pieces. Break them into 30-page increments and read it over a month, over 6 weeks. You can read it while you're reading something else. Sometimes with these huge books, I would read them first thing in the morning and then read my other book at night because there is such an amazing benefit that comes from a big book, and there is such a great feeling upon finishing it. And, I look at these, and 5 of these books, almost 6 of them, are all over 500 pages. So clearly they were working for me this year. But The Deluge, what an incredible story. And it is, to me, the number one crisis in the world. It is the biggest thing that we're all facing together, which is the climate crisis. And what is going to happen if we don't begin to really seriously and aggressively address this? None of the rest of this will matter because we won't be around for it. This falls under the subject of cli-fi or climate fiction. It's roughly at the center of it, there are 7 characters. There's many more that come through here, but there's 7 characters at the heart of it. Think of it as like The Stand, but with the climate crisis. Stephen Markley wrote this over 10 years. The fact that he was thinking these things up, and of course you're reading it, and many of these things have already come to fruition or are about to, is terrifying, but visionary in a way. It's just an amazing story, and how he crafted all of the political, the geological, the economics, all of it, and what is potentially going to happen. I'm telling you, even thinking about airplane turbulence, I thought of it in a totally different way, as well as your pets. And I'm not going to say anything else about that. You'll understand when you get to it. The characters in this are at times hateful and unlikable, and then you fall in love with them. It's complex. It's truly, it's a masterpiece, and a wake-up call for all of us to do something, and to know that we can't take any of life on Earth for granted, because we are destroying everything. So anyway, with that good news, that's number 2. And my final book of the year, which for me was my favorite. And why was it my favorite? Why was it my most memorable? I didn't read this in the beginning of the year. It was fairly early on. Debut novelist. I just found this so beautiful, and I was so moved by this book, and it felt to me like an instant classic. Like, this is a book that is going to be around This is a book that will be taught. This is a book that takes a piece of history and shows it in all its horrificness, but also gives you beauty and love and hope. I just thought it was so incredible. And that is In Memoriam by Alice Wynne. The story of two boys who meet at an English boarding school during World War One, at the start of World War One, and find themselves falling in love with each other. One of them goes and enlists, and fearful of losing him, the second one follows the first to the front lines. And what takes place? Truly, it's an unforgettable novel. There is a moment that happens halfway through that literally is so cinematic in its vision that, or almost theatrical, where I could just see the curtains dropping as the audience just sits there and gasps, and it's like, what? It's really beautiful, fantastic book. Alice Wynne was, we were fortunate enough to have her on the Gaze Reading podcast this year, and it was a great, great, great conversation. And if you haven't heard it, I would encourage you, and if you read the book and liked it, to check that out, as well as Stephen Markley, Nathan Hill, and Javier Fuentes was on as well. All of them were great conversations. All of them enriched and enhanced my experience on books that I already loved and made me love them even more. And again, for all of those, if you've liked any of those books, I would encourage you to check out those interviews. Thank you all for, sticking with me in this year. And if you've liked what you've seen me do, and if your tastes align with mine, and more people who might like my content, please let them know about it. I'm going to come on next week with my wrap up of December. And I'm already kind of in it deep with 2024 releases, securing guests for our podcast, we have some great people that have already come on. So I would encourage you to check that out when we relaunch in the beginning of January. I hope you all have had a wonderful holiday. If I don't see you before the new year, I hope you all have a safe and, for everyone, a safe and prosperous and wonderful new year filled with laughter and love, and of course, books. So thank you all. And yeah, I'll see you soon. Thanks. Bye.